Hi guys, Dave here with part 3 of this Matteo Mancuso lick lesson. Today we're going to look at how we can get the absolute most out of this lick. So we're going to look at like the theory behind it. We're also going to look at how we can transpose each of these lick fragments as well. So we can play it in other keys other than the original. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the chord sequence. Now on the original it's really just a bar of F sharp minor 7 and then a bar of B7 and then it just goes back and forth. So you could think of this like it's a 2-5 chord progression in the key of E major, but really because of the flavour of the tune you could probably more think of it like it's a B blues or B mixolydian in tonality. Now anything mixolydian, I also like to think of the corresponding Dorian kind of perspective from it, and that way you can use any of these licks in two different musical scenarios. So in the case of this, just like we talked about the chords, I can either think of it as a B mixolydian lick, or I could think of it as an F sharp Dorian lick. Today we're going to mainly focus in terms of the B mixolydian. And then later on, once I've had a bit more time on these things, then I'll look at the kind of the Dorian aspect of it. We'll do a little bit of it today, maybe on the very first one, but all the other licks, I'll just do them in terms of the B7 chord. Okay, lick number 1. We've gone over the run in the previous lessons, but the way I visualize it is in terms of this B7 shape. So it's like you know it as an open D7 shape, but this is the movable, I suppose you'd call it a caged chord shape. So the root is on the D string. So I think because the run starts here, that's how I visualize it. Now think of it in terms of the chords, makes it easier if I need to transpose it to a new key. So if I had to play the same thing in A, I would just move down to where A is on the D string. That gives me the shape, and then I can play the lick. Or G, do it one more place. So that's the way that I think about transposing any of these sort of runs. Now if we go back up to the original position, let's talk a little bit about the theory. So, you know, I think B mixolydian, or if you want to think of it as dominant scale, whatever way you want to term that phrase. Now the actual lick itself is very chromatic. First bit, you get one of these little enclosures where you're playing a half step above and below the third of the chord. And then it's just a chromatic run down from there, down to the root, and then it carries on down. Now at this point it changes. And what he's playing there is a C sharp minor pentatonic. Now this is, in terms of the B7 or B mixolydian, this is a very common approach to play. So playing a minor pentatonic up a tone from the original key is a really useful thing to do over dominant 7th chords. And that's what he's doing there. In fact, if I put a little pad on there, you can hear how it kind of sounds against that B7 chord. Also, this minor pentatonic, you can play the blues scale version of it as well. So that's something else you can play around with. Now we can also think of it in terms of the F sharp minor 7 chord, so it'd be more this shape. Now the scale relationship or the interval relationship will be different, because you're starting, in terms of F sharp minor, you're starting on the 7th of the chord. And then we're ending there on the 9th of the chord. So it brings out a nice, in fact, let me put a pad on again. And then landing on the 6th. So you may not, if you was playing this in terms of Dorian, you probably wouldn't stay on that one. You might want to move up to the 7th or the root, or the 5th. Or anywhere else for that matter. Okay, so that's another way that I might view that lick in terms of the Dorian perspective on it. And again, you might find that when you do that, that you may alter some part of the lick so that it lands on a more pleasing note. And again, you see that you're taking a lick and then you're transforming it to suit your needs. Okay, one other thing that I might do with any of these kind of lick portions is, if it's one that I find particularly useful, I might learn it in a different position as well, just so that I haven't always got to go to the same place whenever I need to play that particular phrase. So another place that I learned this first lick, for example, is down in this kind of caged B shape. You could think of it like that, or as a caged, like a caged G. And so, you know, you can see I can take the same idea, the same phrase, and then just but have it in a totally different area of the neck where it might be more accessible. And it might be just down to the range. I might want to play it in a lower register, or it might be just where it needs to be somewhere I can grab to easily. One of the other advantages I find from like taking licks and learning them in different areas of the neck is it really does help you to learn the neck better. Actually, you know, finding the same notes maybe in a lower octave, and also you sometimes get a better understanding of the interval relationship between the notes you're playing in the lick and the chord that you're playing it over. Okay, lick 2 is over the good old 6-string B7 shape. Put a bit of grit on for this one. Okay, there you go. So yeah, actually starting on the 3rd of the chord in terms of B7. There we've got a B major triad. Then there's just a little scale sequence. And then landing on the 9th. So that's the way I think of it in terms of B7. As far as the F sharp minor 7 shape, you could think of it in terms of this one. And again, you know, you could apply that, you could look at the kind of the relationship between the F sharp minor chord and the lick. In this case, it's starting on the 6, and then landing on the root there. Again, nice little chromatic movement there. Okay, lick number 3. Again, we're starting on the same B7 shape. That's the way I think of this one. Most of this is scale based, but there is a little kind of so we're starting on the 2nd of the scale, or the 9th, whatever way you want to think of that in terms of B7. So that's just straight up the scale, and then there's this little bit of chromaticism there between the 6th and the 5th, and then it's just down the scale again, ending on the root of B7. And again, in terms of the F sharp minor 7, I would think of it in terms of this shape. Let's see how that sounds. This time you'd be starting on the 5th of the chord. And then landing on the 4th, so it gives it a very, open sound. Right, lick 4, again we're going to think of it in terms of the big old B7. So we're actually starting on the root, little chromatic run down. And then just going up scale wise. Landing on the 2nd or the 9th of the chord. Now there's one thing to kind of add with that. It feels like that we're using part of the F sharp minor, like melodic minor scale. Now this is another common approach over 7th chords, is to play an F sharp melodic minor over the top. And they call this a Lydian dominant scale. So if I play you that scale over the top, let's do that. There's loads of great dominant 7th licks that are based on that idea. So yeah, just food for thought on that. In terms of the F sharp minor 7, again we're just going to be using that same shape we used before. Let's see how that lick sounds over the top of that. This time it's starting on the 4th. Landing on the 5th. Lick number 4. Lick number 5, again thinking of it in terms of the big old B7. Now in this turn, we're starting on the 2nd of the chord or the 9th of the chord, little chromatic run up. Now this little ascending line, it starts off with B minor pentatonic for the first 2 parts, and this is, even though we're essentially playing over a major chord, when it comes to dominant 7th chords, this is because of the kind of the bluesy nature of it, you can superimpose minor 3rds over the top, or minor pentatonics in this case, over the top of what is essentially a major chord, and it just works. It's just now at the next point he switches to the C sharp minor pentatonic, which we saw earlier, and then we land on the 5th of the B7 chord. So let's do that one more time. There you go. Okay, again with the F sharp minor, it'll be over that particular voicing, and this time it's starting on the 5th. So there's the root there. And then finishing on the root. 5. Okay, lick number 6. We've got a new chord shape. This is kind of like a caged. Oh, bring my guitar and shot a little bit better. It's like a caged open A7, but right up at fret number 14. You could think of it as a B9 as well. That's another, probably an easier one to play. So you can see we're starting on the 5th. Now, as far as the rest of the run goes, it starts off, which actually I see that as, we was talking about the C sharp minor pentatonic. This is more the C sharp minor blues scale. And then after that, it's kind of a series of sus2s and sus4 runs. So let's put sustain on for this. So that first one is actually more like a B sus2. Carries on down. And that's more of a sus4. Is that. And then it just changes very slightly, adds an extra note in. And lands on the flat 7 of the chord. So yeah, C sharp minor blues, and sus2, sus4, on the flat 7. So that's the way it sounds over the B7. Let's try the same thing over an F sharp minor. And in this case, this would be, you could visualize it in terms of the big, again, not the easiest way to play it, but here we go. And this time it's starting on the root. And then landing on the flat 3rd of the chord. Now, one thing about the sus chords is they're super useful. For one thing, they're great sounding. They've got a very wide open sound, but also because there's no major or minor thirds in the chords, they can substitute over a great deal, a great deal of chords, because they can be over either major or minor. The sus chords work really well because they don't address either the major or the minor tonality. Hope that makes sense. And yeah, they're just a great wide sounding lick, basically. So that's the way I think of that in terms of lick number 6. So that's the end of the lesson, guys. I hope it's kind of given you a little bit more insight in how I approach getting the most out of any lick that I learn. I really try and deep dive into it, see why it works, why it sounds good over any particular chord, look at the interval relationship, look at any kind of melodic ideas as far as scale choices go, chromatic movements. The whole idea of playing above and below chord tones is a very common thing to do, which he does quite a bit in this series of licks. Yeah, and just generally, and also things like, I look at this from 2 different standpoints. I can look at this either in terms of Mixolydian, in this case B, or Dorian. And with those 2 modes in particular, I do like to kind of learn it from both perspectives, and then I get the absolute most out of these phrases. So like I say, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get a lot from it, and I'll see you for another lesson again in the near future.